It's unthinkable to me that you have an opportunity in your lifetime to be a professional, that you think about quitting. So you don't quit it, and you don't quit in sports. You retire. You don't get to quit. It's not an option. See, someone told me that a long time ago. That ain't even an option. The person told me that, he ain't here anymore. He died. This is what's great about sports. This is what the greatest thing about sports is. You play to win the game. Hello? You play to win the game. You don't play to just play it. That's the great thing about sports. You play to win. And I don't care if you don't have any wins. You go play to win. When you start telling me it doesn't matter, then retire.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Randall Handles Football Podcast. I'm your host, Randall Tebus. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into the NFC South with the New Orleans Saints, Atlanta Falcons, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Carolina Panthers. But before we get started, just want to remind everybody to please subscribe to the show, get the notifications, find out when these shows drop live. Okay, so of course, the reigning champions of the NFC South are the New Orleans Saints. They were able to bring back Drew Brees on a 2-year contract as he contemplated retirement, but ultimately chose to re-sign and re-up with the Saints for another hopeful championship run. Out the door is the backup quarterback to Drew Brees, Teddy Bridgewater. I believe that they wanted him to be their future quarterback when Drew Brees retired. However, they weren't going to tell Drew Brees to hit free agency in order to keep Teddy Bridgewater. And so ultimately, Teddy Bridgewater did hit free agency. He signed with the Carolina Panthers. And so going into this season, they are now running with quarterback Taysom Hill, the utility man, jack of all trades, master of nothing quarterback, to be the backup to Drew Brees, as well as, the do everything kind of man for them. So out the door is Teddy Bridgewater, along with backup wide receiver Ted Ginn Jr., who's a veteran of the league, been here for, probably a decade plus. So both those players are out the door for the New Orleans Saints. And in come veteran wide receiver Emmanuel Sanders from the San Francisco 49ers, as he made a Super Bowl appearance last season. So he should bring some veteran leadership to this Saints team, especially to that locker room. Of course, we all know that they still have Mike Thomas, the reigning catches, receptions leader from last year, and also set the NFL record in receptions last year. So they still do have Mike Thomas. I think Emmanuel Sanders gives Drew Brees an excellent number 2 option, finally. Along with, they did bring back Malcolm Jenkins. Malcolm Jenkins started his career with the New Orleans Saints before moving to Philadelphia to play with the Eagles, but he is now back with the Saints to take over the safety spot. And they have their first pick from the NFL draft, center Cesar Ruiz. It's widely believed that Ruiz is going to play guard and not center because they did just draft a center, 2 years ago. So it's believed that Ruiz is actually going to take over the guard spot, although he is listed at center. So let's take a look at the upcoming schedule for the New Orleans Saints. Okay. So week 1, we get a terrific matchup between the Saints and the Buccaneers. Now, prior to this season, this would have been looked at as a below average matchup. Of course, the Saints were going to dominate. However, and we'll get into this a little bit later in this show, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers now have Hall of Fame quarterback Tom Brady and Hall of Fame tight end Rob Gronkowski. So I think this has the workings to be an excellent matchup. Of course, it is in that prime time 1 o'clock slot in the afternoon. So a lot of the nation will be watching this game as well. I think the Saints lose this game to the Buccaneers and start the season off with a loss. Moving ahead, the Saints take on the Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders, in their home debut on Monday Night Football in their brand new stadium in Las Vegas. And the Saints play spoiler and get the win in Las Vegas to move to a record of 1 win and 1 loss. The following week, they take on the Green Bay Packers in New Orleans on Sunday Night Football, where they come away with a victory as well, improving to a record of 2 wins and 1 loss. The following week, they travel to Detroit to take on the Lions, and they get a victory here as well as the following week on Monday Night Football when they take on the Los Angeles Chargers. They get a win as well, going into the bye week with a record of 4 wins and 1 loss. Following the bye week, they host the Carolina Panthers in New Orleans and get a victory here as well. The following week, in Week 8, they travel to Soldier Field to take on the Chicago Bears, and they come away with a victory as well, improving to a record of 6 wins and 1 loss, before running into the Tampa Bay Buccaneers once again on Sunday Night Football and getting their 2nd loss of the season. Okay, so I have the Saints losing to the Buccaneers again, fall to a record of 6 wins and 2 losses. That means that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have just swept the season series against the Saints, which will become crucial if they end up with an even record and they have those 2 head-to-head victories. That might prove to make a big difference in the playoff picture. The following week, the New Orleans Saints play host to the reigning NFC champion San Francisco 49ers, where they drop this game as well in Week 10 to move to a record of 6 wins and 3 losses. Before going on a bit of a win streak, the following week they host the Atlanta Falcons and win. The following week they travel to Denver to Mile High Stadium to take on the Broncos and come away with a victory as well, to improve to a record of 8 wins and 3 losses. The following week, they travel to Atlanta to take on the Falcons, and they come away with a victory as well. And the following week, in Week 14, they travel to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles and come away with a victory as well. So through 14 weeks, I have the Saints with a record of 10 wins and 3 losses. Before dropping their next 2 games, playing host to the Kansas City Chiefs, the reigning Super Bowl champions, and come away with a loss, and hosting the Minnesota Vikings on Christmas Day. That's December 25th. That's a Friday game. I have them dropping this game to the Vikings as well. Of course, the Vikings have been playing a big spoiler to the Saints in recent years in the postseason, and I think this continues on. I have the Vikings winning that game on Christmas Day to drop the Saints to a record of 10 wins and 5 losses before finishing their season at Carolina and coming away with a victory there as well. So in total, I have the New Orleans Saints finishing with a record of 11 wins and 5 losses. That's not bad for a team who finished last season with a record of 13 wins and 3 losses, right? There's not much of a difference between 11 wins and 13 wins. However, I don't think this will be good enough for a first-round bye for the New Orleans Saints. As well as you'll see here in a second, I don't even think this is going to be good enough to win their division. Okay. So the Saints finished with a record of 11 wins and 5 losses and don't even win their division. Okay. We'll get into that here in just a second. The next team up I have in the NFC South, the team that finished second last season, is the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons underwent a bit of a change. Of scenery on the offensive side. Of course, they still have Julio Jones, Matt Ryan, Calvin Ridley. But out the door is running back Devontae Freeman and tight end Austin Hooper. The latter, Austin Hooper, who became the highest paid tight end when he signed a deal with the Cleveland Browns this offseason. As of this shooting, Devontae Freeman is still a free agent. So it remains to be seen where it is that he'll sign. There was links that he was going to sign with the Seattle Seahawks before they chose to sign Carlos Hyde. So we'll see what ends up happening with Devontae Freeman. Remember, it wasn't too long ago that the Falcons did make him the highest paid running back as well. So we'll see what happens with him. So out the door are 2 offensive staples that have been in Atlanta for the past few seasons in Hooper and Freeman. And in come all-pro running back Todd Gurley. Now, Todd Gurley comes over from the Los Angeles Rams. Gurley, if you remember, just 2 short seasons ago, led the league in scrimmage yards, was an all-pro running back, had a Super Bowl appearance with the Los Angeles Rams. But ever since he hurt his knee, at the end of that season, he has not been the same running back. So it will be interesting to see if he regains his form with Atlanta, or if he, continues to be this running back who will have injury problems throughout the rest of his career, and ultimately will be saying what if with Todd Gurley. So I think it's a low risk pickup for the Falcons, and I do like the pickup for Gurley. We'll just see if he can stay healthy. In addition to bringing in Todd Gurley, they traded for a former Ravens tight end Hayden Hurst, a former first-round pick himself. They brought in another former first-round pick from the Los Angeles Rams, Dante Fowler Jr., to rush the passer on the end, and first-round draft pick out of Clemson, cornerback AJ Terrell. I think that all of these are great pickups for the Falcons. They're looking to improve on the season. I think that their coach Dan Quinn is on the hot seat. There was rumors that he was going to be fired last season, but ultimately, their owner Arthur Blank showed a little bit of support in Dan Quinn, and didn't fire him. Said we put our faith in you. So we'll see how it is that the Falcons go this season. I do have them improving from last season, but not by much. Okay, so let's take a look at their schedule and see how that shapes up. Okay, so week 1, I have that the Atlanta Falcons will play host to the Seattle Seahawks, and I have them winning this game to start out the season with 1 win and 0 losses. Week 2, they travel to Dallas to take on the Cowboys, and they drop this game to even out their record at 1 win and 1 loss. Week 3, they host the Chicago Bears and come away with the victory here to improve to 2 wins and 1 loss. As well as they win the next game in Lambeau Field at the Green Bay Packers on Monday Night Football. I have them winning this game as well. So through 4 weeks, I have the Falcons at a record of 3 wins and 1 loss. So right now, if you're a Falcons fan, you're thinking that this season's going great. In the past few seasons, at least last season, they started out horrific and ultimately ended the season on a winning note. I have it almost being the exact opposite this season, where they start out really hot before fading off in the back half of the season. So starting out the next 3 games, I have them dropping all 3 of these games. The first one, week 5, they host the Carolina Panthers. The next one, week 6, I have them traveling to Minnesota to take on the Vikings and losing. And the following week, week 7, they host the Detroit Lions in Atlanta, and they lose this game as well, to fall to a record of 3 wins and 4 losses. So after their hot 3-1 start, they now sit through 7 weeks at a record of 3 wins and 4 losses. Week 8 on Thursday Night Football, they travel to Carolina to take on the Panthers, and I have them winning this game to improve to 4 wins and 4 losses. The next week, they host the Denver Broncos, win this game, and improve to a record of 5 wins and 4 losses heading into their bye week. So through 10 weeks, actually, I have them with the record of 5 wins and 4 losses. It's this last half of the season where it doesn't go too well outside of their bye week. So the next week, in week 11, I have them losing to the Saints in New Orleans to fall to a record of 5 wins and 5 losses. The next week, I have them winning against the Las Vegas Raiders in Atlanta. The following week, they host the New Orleans Saints and drop this game as well to fall to a record of 6 wins and 6 losses. The next week, they travel to Los Angeles on a West Coast trip to take on the Chargers, and they lose this game to the Chargers. The following week, in week 15, they host the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, and get their final win of the season against the Buccaneers to improve to a record of 7 wins and 7 losses, before dropping the next 2 games at Arrowhead, taking on the Chiefs, and at Tampa, taking on the Buccaneers. So all in all, I have the Falcons finishing with a record of 7 wins and 9 losses. This is a bit of an improvement from last season. However, this will not be good enough to compete in their division with 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks in Drew Brees and Tom Brady. So I think that, again, Dan Quinn will be on the hot seat. I don't think he may be fired by the end of the season. I know that they want him. They want to see improvement, and this is an improvement, but I don't think it's going to be enough of an improvement to save Quinn's job with the Falcons. So expect a big shakeup this coming offseason from the Atlanta Falcons. So now we get into probably the most exciting team in the NFL right now, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Okay, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers won this offseason. They were able to come up with not just Tom Brady, but also Tom Brady's best friend, Rob Gronkowski. Rob Gronkowski came out of retirement just to join the Buccaneers, just to be reunited with Tom Brady. There was rumors that so long as Brady left the Patriots, Gronkowski was going to come out of retirement and join Brady wherever it is that he went to. So that ended up playing out, and so I think the Buccaneers probably have one of the most exciting offenses in the entire league. Okay, we're talking about they have Tom Brady at quarterback. Their running back position still seems up in the air. There's been talks that Devontae Freeman may go to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but right now they have, as they're in their running back spot, Ronald Jones, a running back out of USC. I think he's about a 2-year vet. So they still do have Ronald Jones, but I know they want a little bit more. So if they were able to bring in Freeman or someone of Freeman's caliber, that would just add to this excitement around the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Of course, they still have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin on the outside. They still have 3 terrific tight ends. Obviously, Rob Gronkowski that I've talked a lot about. They still have O.J. Howard, a former first-round pick, and they still have Cameron Brate as a tight end as well. So there's going to be a lot of options if you're Tom Brady to be throwing to. And, of course, with head coach Bruce Arians, we know he is all about the passing game, all about the air raid offense. So I think there's going to be some fireworks being set off. We're going to hear a lot of cannon shots in Tampa Bay this season. It's going to be in Tampa. Tampa Bay is not actually a city. There's going to be a lot of cannons fired in Tampa this offseason and this coming season. So expect to see a prolific offense in Tampa, okay? So out the door, of course, is the incumbent Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston will go down in infamy as the first quarterback ever to have a 30-30 season. What does a 30-30 season mean? He threw for 30 touchdowns and he threw 30 interceptions. Wow. That's a lot of turnovers that you really can't afford at the most important position. So they had to make a change. And ultimately, what better way to make a change than to bring in Tom Brady? So the Buccaneers swapped out quarterbacks. Out goes Jameis Winston, who signed with the Saints. And in comes Tom Brady. So, I think that's a fair swap. If you're a Buccaneers fan, you're definitely happy about that. So, and of course, in the first round, they did draft offensive tackle Tristan Wirfs. If you've seen any of his videos, he has a lot of videos. There was a viral video of him standing in a swimming pool, and from a flat stance, he was able to jump completely out of the pool and onto the patio around it. So it's pretty incredible. This guy's really strong, obviously a young kid. So, I think this is a good move by the Buccaneers. Obviously, you want to shore up the offensive line for Tom Brady. So a good move. So all in all, the Buccaneers off season gets an A+. We just hope that will translate into wins this coming season. And of course, I do think it will translate. Taking a look at their schedule, week 1, the Buccaneers traveled to New Orleans to take a Saints. I preluded this before when I was talking about the Saints. I think this is a terrific first game of the week. You have 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks in Drew Brees and Tom Brady. I think the Buccaneers come away with a victory here. I think it's going to be an exciting game. So I do have the Buccaneers starting out with a record of 1-0 and ultimately winning their first 4 games. The following week, they host the Carolina Panthers and they get a victory. In week 3, they travel to Denver to take on the Broncos and they get a victory. And in week 4, they host the Los Angeles Chargers and get a victory as well. So starting out the season, I have the Buccaneers at a record of 4 wins and 0 losses. Week 5, they get a bit of a stunner, a bit of an upset as they travel to Soldier Field to take on the Chicago Bears on Thursday Night Football, and they drop this game. Okay, I have them losing to the Bears to fall to a record of 4-1, and this starts a bit of a slide for the Buccaneers. The following week, they host the Green Bay Packers, and I have them losing this game as well. And in week 7, I have them traveling to Las Vegas Raiders on Sunday Night Football and dropping this game as well. So through 7 weeks, I have the Buccaneers pegged at a record of 4 wins and 3 losses. There was a lot of excitement around this team to begin with, but halfway through the season, we're starting to see some vulnerabilities with this team. Okay, is their defense going to be able to match what their offense did? They did have the #1 rush defense last season. So we'll see what happens. After this loss to the Raiders, I have them going on a nice win streak, regaining their form and showing that they really are a dominant team. Starting with, they traveled to the Meadowlands to take on the Giants on Monday Night Football, and they win this game to improve to a record of 5 wins and 3 losses. The following week, they host the Saints on Sunday Night Football and come away with the victory. The following week, in Week 10, they travel to Carolina to take on the Panthers, and they win this game as well. The following week, in Week 11, they host the Los Angeles Rams on Monday Night Football and win this game as well. The following week, and hopefully in what could be a Super Bowl preview, they host the Kansas City Chiefs in Week 12, and I have them winning this game as well. So going into their bye week, I have the Buccaneers at a record of 9 wins and 3 losses. This is the Tampa team that we wanted to see this season, and I think that they'll continue their winning streak. They'll continue their hot start and end the season on an up note as well. So after their bye week, they host the Minnesota Vikings, and they win this game as well. Before dropping their last game of the season in Atlanta to the Falcons, I have them losing this game as well. Before winning the next 2 games at Detroit and home against the Falcons, I have them winning both of these games and finishing with a record of 12 wins and 4 losses. I think this 12-win and 4-loss season is pretty accurate of what will actually happen. It will be enough to get them their first round bye. I don't know if this will be the #1 team in the NFC. There's a lot of really good teams in the NFC right now. It's a really strong conference. But I think the 12 wins and 4-loss season will be enough for a first round bye. They will win their division, and they will make a good playoff push as well. Okay, so I have the Buccaneers having a very successful season this season. I don't think we would expect any less with the Tom Brady-led team, especially with all those weapons. So we'll see if it actually comes to fruition. Now we move to our last team in the NFC South, the Carolina Panthers. Keep pounding. So the Panthers offseason is really about the change in their quarterback position. Of course, they had longtime quarterback and former NFL MVP Cam Newton, who they did release at the end of this past season. And as of this shooting, Cam Newton is still a free agent. I'm really excited to see what team it is that he ends up signing with. I do think he has starting quarterback talent. I don't think that he should settle for being a backup. So I think he's going to wait through the preseason and see if there's some quarterback that may get injured, or some team that feels like they do need to make a quarterback change. And so I think he's going to be patient with signing with the team. As well as their starter from most of last season after Cam Newton went down with the injury, Kyle Allen. Really interesting. They re-signed Kyle Allen, and then about a week later, they traded him away to the Washington Redskins. So it was kind of interesting what they did there. Of course, Ron Rivera is now the head coach of Washington, so I think that that kind of had a factor in it. So both of their starting quarterbacks from last season are now gone. And in come their quarterback that they signed in the free agency from the New Orleans Saints, in Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater, I think, will be a good quarterback. It's been a while since he's been an actual starter after his horrific and gruesome injury. Of course, last season he did fill in for in New Orleans for Drew Brees last season, and I think won his 4 or 5 starts in a row. So I think he's going to be just fine in Carolina. I don't think Carolina is going to make it to the postseason this season, but I do like the things that they have been doing. So along with bringing in quarterback Teddy Bridgewater, they did sign wide receiver Robbie Anderson from the New York Jets. Robbie Anderson, I think, is a terrific wide receiver. He has not lived up to his potential yet, but he has good size, good speed, everything you want from a wide receiver. And, of course, their first-round pick from this year's NFL draft was a defensive tackle, interior lineman Derrick Brown. So all 3 of those moves do make the Panthers a better team. And, of course, they do still have Christian McCaffrey, okay? So run CMC, right? Gotta get McCaffrey the ball all you can. So let's take a look at their upcoming schedule and see where the Panthers will finish. Okay. And so I have the Panthers winning their Week 1 matchup against the Raiders. They're hosting Las Vegas Raiders to start their season with 1 win and 0 losses. The following week, they travel to Tampa to take on the Buccaneers, and they drop this game. Again, that's to, of course, Tom Brady and the new look Buccaneers. The following week, they travel to Los Angeles to take on the Chargers, and they win this game as well, improving to a record of 2 wins and 1 loss 3 weeks into the season. In Week 4, they host the Arizona Cardinals, and they lose this game. Week 5, they travel to Atlanta to take on the Falcons, and they win this game. Week 6, they host the Chicago Bears, and they win this game as well, improving to a record of 4 wins and 2 losses. In Week 7, they travel to New Orleans to take on the Saints, where they drop this game. Week 8, they host the Atlanta Falcons on Thursday Night Football and drop this game as well. Week 9, they travel to Kansas City to take on the reigning Super Bowl champion Chiefs, and they lose this game as well as the next 2 games, home against the Buccaneers and home against the Lions. I have them dropping both of these games as well. So 11 weeks into the season, I have the Panthers with a record of 4 wins and 7 losses. Now, I don't know what the hype is surrounding Carolina this offseason with Panthers fans, but I feel like this is somewhat in the middle, right? They weren't a good team last year, but this isn't necessarily a good record. Probably not where you want to be to call it a successful season. However, I do have things picking up a little bit for the Panthers in the coming weeks. 1 week before their bye week, they travel to Minnesota to take on the Vikings in Week 12, and they come away with a victory here. So heading into the bye week, I have them with a record of 5 wins and 7 losses. Coming out of the bye week, they host the Denver Broncos, and they win this game to improve to a record of 6 wins and 7 losses. The following week, they travel to Lambeau Field to take on the Packers, and they lose this game. In Week 16, they get their last win of the season in Washington against their former head coach, Ron Rivera, and the Redskins. I have them winning this game, improving to a record of 7 wins and 8 losses. As I said, this is their last win of the season because in Week 17, they host the New Orleans Saints, who will be fighting for a division crown, so they'll be playing hard. I have the Saints winning that game and the Panthers losing that game. Overall, the Panthers finished with a record of 7 wins and 9 losses. Again, I think this is right where you wanted to be if you're a Panthers fan. I think in all, the NFC South is going to be a very competitive division. Like I said, I have 2 playoff teams coming from the NFC South, and the other 2 teams in this division finishing with a record of 7 wins and 9 losses. That's not bad. Like I said, I think it's going to be a very competitive division. This division has been very competitive in the past few seasons. So really excited for this division, okay? I think there's a good potential that the Super Bowl, the NFC representative in the Super Bowl comes from the NFC South, whether that be the Saints or the Buccaneers. I think they'll both have a shot to go to the Super Bowl. So, like I said, it'll be exciting for the NFC South. I think there's a lot of things to be excited about if you're one of these fans of any of these teams in the NFC South. So, what do you guys think? Do you guys agree with my predictions? Do you guys see any differences? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked what you saw, please subscribe to my channel. That's Randall Handles Football. This ends yet another episode of the Randall Handles Football Show.
I don't care who you play, whether it's a high school team, a junior college team, a college team, much less an NFL team. When you turn the ball over 5 times, 4 interceptions, 1 for a touchdown, 3 others in field position to set up touchdowns, you ain't gonna beat anybody I just talked about. Anybody. All right? And that was a disgraceful performance, in my opinion. We threw that game. We gave it away by doing that. We gave them the friggin' game. In my opinion, that sucked. What's that? Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.